James Sterling stood at the window of his penthouse office, watching the rain pour down on the city below. His face showed no emotion as he received the news that the Johnson family had won the bid for the land he had been eyeing for months. It was the third time they had beaten him to a deal this year. His assistant flinched as James's fist came down hard on his desk, sending papers flying. "I want everything on them," he said in a voice so cold it could freeze water. "Every weakness, every secret, every debt. I want to know what makes them tick, and then I want to watch them fall apart." His assistant nodded quickly and left the room. James turned back to the window, his reflection showing a man whose good looks were marred by the hardness in his eyes. At 35, he had built Sterling Enterprises from nothing into a billion-dollar real estate empire. He had crushed competitors before, and the Johnsons would be no different. What James didn't know was that his path would soon cross with Olivia Johnson in a way that would shake the very foundation of everything he believed in. 3 days later, James was attending a charity gala. These events bored him, but they were necessary for business. He was making small talk with the mayor when he spotted her across the room. She was tall and elegant in a simple blue dress, her dark skin glowing under the chandelier lights. Something about her caught his attention immediately. Perhaps the confidence in her stance or the genuine smile she gave to an elderly woman beside her. "Who is that?" he asked the mayor, interrupting whatever the man had been saying. The mayor followed his gaze. "That's Olivia Johnson. She runs the community development programs for her family's business." James felt his jaw tighten. A Johnson. Of course. He should have known. "Introduce us," he said, already moving forward. As they approached, Olivia turned, and James was struck by her eyes, intelligent and warm. She recognized him immediately, and her smile faded. "Mr. Sterling, this is Olivia Johnson." "Ms. Johnson, James Sterling," the mayor said, clearly unaware of the tension suddenly filling the air between them. "Mr. Sterling," she said coolly, extending her hand. "Your reputation precedes you." James took her hand, noting how small it felt in his own. "As does your family's habit of interfering in my business." The mayor looked uncomfortable and excused himself. Olivia's eyes narrowed. "Is that what you call fair competition? Interference?" "There's nothing fair about the tactics your father uses," James replied, keeping his voice low despite his anger. "That's rich coming from you," she said. "We've all heard the stories about how you built your empire on the backs of neighborhoods you've torn down." Her words stung more than they should have. "You don't know anything about me." "I know enough," she said, turning to leave. Without thinking, James caught her arm. "Dance with me." She looked at his hand on her arm, then back at his face. "Why would I do that?" "Because I want to understand my enemy," he said honestly. Something flickered in her eyes, curiosity perhaps. "One dance," she said. "And then you'll leave me alone for the rest of the evening." As he led her to the dance floor, James felt oddly unsettled. He had meant to intimidate her, to let her know he was watching her family. Instead, as he placed his hand on her waist and began to move with her to the music, he found himself genuinely curious. "Why does your family want that land in the East Side so badly?" he asked. "Because people live there," she replied simply. "People who deserve better housing, not luxury condos they can't afford." "So this is about charity?" he asked skeptically. "It's about responsibility," she corrected. "Something I'm not sure you understand." "You think I don't understand responsibility?" he asked, suddenly angry again. "I've been responsible for myself since I was 16. I built everything I have from nothing." "And now that you have everything, what are you building for others?" she challenged. The question caught him off guard. No one spoke to him like this anymore, directly, without fear or flattery. The song ended and Olivia stepped back. "Thank you for the dance, Mr. Sterling. I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening plotting our downfall." She walked away, leaving James standing alone on the dance floor, watching her go with a strange feeling in his chest. It wasn't until much later that night, as he lay awake in his empty penthouse, that he realized what the feeling was. For the first time in years, someone had made him question himself. The next morning, James called his assistant. "Get me everything on Olivia Johnson," he ordered. The file arrived later that day. 32 years old. Harvard Business School. Could have worked anywhere but chose to join her family's business 5 years ago. Led several successful community development projects. Unmarried. No children. Lived alone in an apartment downtown, modest by the standards of her family's wealth. Volunteered teaching business skills to high school students in low-income areas. James found himself reading the file twice, looking for some evidence of corruption or hypocrisy. There was none. What he didn't expect was to see her again so soon. But 3 days later, as he was leaving a business lunch, he spotted her across the street, arguing with a man in an expensive suit outside a small cafe. The man grabbed her arm roughly, and without thinking, James was crossing the street, his security team scrambling to keep up. "Is there a problem here?" he asked, his voice dangerously quiet. Both Olivia and the man turned to look at him in surprise. "This is a private conversation," the man said dismissively. "He was just leaving," Olivia said at the same time, pulling her arm free. James moved to stand beside her. "I believe the lady said you're leaving." The man looked from James to Olivia, then backed away. "This isn't over, Olivia. Your father will hear about this." Once he was gone, Olivia turned to James. "I didn't need your help." "Who was that?" James asked, ignoring her statement. "Richard Benson. My father's business partner's son," she said, rubbing her arm where the man had grabbed her. "He thinks we're meant to be together." "I disagree." James found himself unreasonably angry at the thought of Benson's hands on her. "Are you okay?" She looked at him suspiciously. "Why do you care?" Was a good question. One James didn't have an answer for. "Let me buy you a coffee," he said instead of answering. Olivia hesitated, then nodded. "Okay. But just coffee." They sat in the cafe for over an hour. James learned that Olivia was passionate about affordable housing, that she loved old movies, and that she had a laugh that made something warm spread through his chest. He found himself telling her about growing up poor, about his mother who had worked 3 jobs to support him, about his determination to never be helpless again. "Is that why you're so ruthless in business?" she asked. "Fear of being helpless?" "I'm not ruthless," he defended. "I'm effective." "You're both," she said. "But maybe there's more to you than I thought." When they parted ways, James found himself wanting to see her again. It was a dangerous feeling, one he tried to push away. But the next week, when his team presented him with a plan to undermine the Johnsons' bid on the East Side property by spreading rumors about environmental concerns, James found himself hesitating. "Find another way," he ordered. "One that doesn't involve lies." His team looked shocked, but James didn't care. Something had changed. And it scared him more than he cared to admit. 2 weeks after their coffee, James found himself driving to the East Side property that had started their rivalry. He parked his car and walked the perimeter, trying to see it through Olivia's eyes. It was run down, yes, but he could see children playing in the spaces between buildings, elderly people sitting on porches, a community existing in the shadows of neglect. "Didn't expect to see you here," a familiar voice said. James turned to find Olivia standing behind him, a folder clutched to her chest, wind blowing her braids slightly. "I wanted to see what all the fuss was about," he said, trying to sound casual. "And?" she asked, moving to stand beside him. "I see a property that could be worth millions with the right development," he said honestly. Olivia sighed. "That's the difference between us. I see families who have lived here for generations, who deserve better but shouldn't be forced out." "Can't they have both?" James asked, the question surprising even himself. Olivia looked at him curiously. "What do you mean?" "Better housing, staying in their community, but with development that brings in jobs and improves the area. That would require a developer who cares about more than just profit margins," she said pointedly. "Maybe," James conceded. "Or maybe just one who sees the long-term benefits of community goodwill." Olivia studied his face. "Are you saying you could be that developer?" James wasn't sure what he was saying. This wasn't like him. He made decisions based on profit and potential, not on conversations with beautiful women with challenging questions. "I'm saying I'd like to see your proposal for the area," he said finally. "The one your family presented to the city council." Surprise flickered across her face. "Why?" "Professional curiosity," he said with a shrug. She didn't believe him, he could tell. But she nodded. "I have a copy in my car. But I have conditions." "Of course you do," he said, a small smile tugging at his lips. "You can't use anything in it against us," she said seriously. "And you have to tell me your honest opinion. Not what you think I want to hear." "Deal?" he agreed. They ended up at a small local restaurant nearby. The owner greeted Olivia by name and led them to a quiet corner table. James felt out of place in his expensive suit among the casual diners, but no one seemed to pay them much attention. As they ate surprisingly good food, Olivia walked him through her family's proposal. It was good, better than he had expected. Thoughtful preservation of community spaces, modernized housing that current residents could afford, commercial areas that would bring in jobs and services. "It's ambitious," he admitted when she finished. But the numbers don't work. They do if profit isn't the only goal, she countered. Even non-profits need to stay solvent, he pointed out. Have you considered a partnership with a private developer who could offset some of the costs in exchange for specific commercial rights? She looked thoughtful. The community would never trust a typical developer. What about an atypical one? James asked. Their eyes met across the table and something shifted between them. It wasn't just about business anymore and they both knew it. Why are you really here, James? She asked softly, using his first name for the first time. He should have had a smooth answer ready, something about business strategy or keeping enemies close. Instead, he found himself saying, I can't stop thinking about you. The honesty of his answer seemed to surprise her as much as it did him. A small, genuine smile played at her lips. That's inconvenient, she said. Extremely, he agreed. They walked back to their cars together, their conversation shifting to lighter topics. Favorite books, travel stories, childhood memories. James couldn't remember the last time he had talked this way with anyone, openly and without agenda. My father would have a heart attack if he knew I was talking to you like this, Olivia said as they reached her car. Mine would rise from the grave to yell at me, James replied, thinking of his father who had abandoned them when James was a child. Olivia's face softened. I'm sorry about your father. Don't be. He made his choice, James said, the old bitterness rising briefly before he pushed it down. Still, she said, reaching out to touch his arm gently. It must have been hard. Her touch was light, but James felt it like an electric current. Without thinking, he moved closer and she didn't back away. For a moment they stood there, the air between them charged with possibility. His phone rang, shattering the moment. James stepped back and checked it, his assistant with an urgent matter. I have to go, he said regretfully. Olivia nodded, something like disappointment flashing in her eyes. I should get back too. As she opened her car door, James found himself saying, Have dinner with me. Tomorrow night. She hesitated. That might not be a good idea. Probably not, he agreed. But I'm asking anyway. A small smile. Okay. Text me the details. As James drove back to his office, he realized he was smiling. It felt foreign on his face, this expression of unguarded happiness. It had been a long time. His assistant was waiting when he arrived, looking anxious. Sir, there's been a development with the Johnson situation. James's smile faded. What kind of development? We found something. About Walter Johnson, Olivia's father. The assistant handed him a folder. Financial irregularities from years ago. Nothing illegal exactly, but enough to raise questions about their stability if it got out. James stared at the folder in his hands, feeling suddenly cold. This was what he had asked for, wasn't it? Ammunition against his rivals. A way to win. Sir? Do you want us to proceed with leaking this to our contacts? James thought of Olivia's face when she talked about her father, the pride in her voice. He thought about their dinner plans for tomorrow. No, he said firmly, placing the folder on his desk. We're changing strategies. Get the team together. His assistant looked confused. Sir? I said get the team together, James repeated. We're going to make the Johnsons a different kind of offer. That night, James sat in his penthouse working later than usual, drafting a new proposal. A partnership with Johnson Development that would combine his resources with their community focus. It was risky, unconventional, and possibly terrible business. But for the first time in years, he was excited about something more than just winning. His phone chimed with a message. Olivia. Still on for tomorrow? He typed back, absolutely. I have something I want to show you. Her reply came quickly, business or pleasure? James smiled at his phone. Maybe both. 3 dots appeared as she typed, disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, intriguing. See you tomorrow. James put his phone down and turned back to his proposal. He had a lot of work to do before tomorrow night. And for once he didn't mind. Olivia stood in front of her closet, pulling out dresses and discarding them on her bed. This was ridiculous. It was just dinner with James Sterling, her family's business rival. Not a date. Definitely not a date. Her phone rang and she saw her father's name on the screen. Guilt twisted in her stomach as she answered. Hey Dad, she said, trying to sound casual. Olivia, where are you? We're about to start the family dinner. Walter Johnson's deep voice came through the speaker. Family dinner. Every Friday night for as long as she could remember. And she had completely forgotten in her distraction over James. I'm so sorry, Dad. I have to miss it tonight. I have. She hesitated. Plans. Pause. Plans? With who? Olivia swallowed. She couldn't lie to him, but she couldn't tell him the truth either. Not yet. A business contact. About the East Side project. Another pause, longer this time. You're not meeting with Sterling, are you? Olivia's silence was answer enough. Her father's voice hardened. Olivia, that man is dangerous. He's destroyed families like ours before. He doesn't care about people. He cares about profit and power. It's just dinner, Dad, she said, not sure why she was defending her decision. I want to hear what he has to say. He'll say whatever he thinks you want to hear, her father warned. It's what men like him do. The words stung because they echoed her own doubts. What was James really after? Had their conversations meant anything to him, or was this all an elaborate game to get what he wanted? I can take care of myself, she told her father. I'll see you Sunday for brunch, okay? After they hung up, Olivia sat on her bed, surrounded by discarded dresses, suddenly unsure. Maybe her father was right. Maybe this was a mistake. Her phone chimed with a text from James with the restaurant address and a simple message, looking forward to tonight. Olivia took a deep breath and reached for a simple black dress. She was going. She needed to know if her instincts about James were right or if this was all part of some plan. The restaurant James had chosen was upscale but not flashy. When she arrived, he was already waiting, standing as soon as he saw her. Something in his expression when he looked at her made her heart beat faster. You look beautiful, he said simply. Thank you, she replied, suddenly shy. You clean up pretty well yourself. He smiled, and they were shown to a private table in a quiet corner. After they ordered drinks, James pulled out a folder. I wanted to show you this, he said, sliding it across the table. Olivia opened it cautiously, half expecting some kind of trap. Instead, she found a proposal for a joint venture between Sterling Enterprises and Johnson Development for the East Side property. What is this? She asked, looking up at him in surprise. A new approach, he said. Your vision, my resources. We could do something extraordinary there. Olivia read through the outline, her excitement growing. It addressed all of her concerns about displacement and affordability while incorporating innovative design and sustainable elements that would make the project financially viable. This is impressive, she admitted. But why? Why would you want to partner with us when a week ago you were trying to beat us? James looked down at his drink, then back at her. Because you made me see things differently. And because. He hesitated. I think we make a good team. The intensity in his eyes made her breath catch. This wasn't just about business. What would your father say about this? James asked. Olivia laughed without humor. He'd say I'm being naive. That you have some hidden agenda. And what do you think? James asked, his voice low. She studied his face. I think there's more to you than most people see. Their dinner arrived and their conversation shifted to lighter topics. Olivia found herself laughing more than she had in months. James was surprisingly funny when he relaxed, with a dry wit that matched her own. Tell me about your family, he said as they finished their main course. They must be remarkable people to have raised someone like you. The genuine interest in his voice touched her. My dad built his business from nothing. He grew up poor in the South Side, got a scholarship to college, and came back determined to make things better for his community. My mom was his college sweetheart. She's a pediatrician. And I have an older brother, Marcus, who runs the financial side of the business. They sound like good people, James said thoughtfully. They are, Olivia confirmed. What about you? You mentioned your mother worked hard for you. A shadow crossed James's face. She died when I was 19. Cancer. I had just started college on scholarship. I'm so sorry, Olivia said, reaching across the table to touch his hand. She never got to see what I built, he said quietly. Sometimes I wonder if she would be proud or if she'd be disappointed in some of the choices I've made. The vulnerability in his voice caught Olivia by surprise. This wasn't the ruthless billionaire from the business pages. This was just a man with his own regrets and uncertainties. I think she'd be proud, Olivia said softly. Their eyes met and something shifted between them again. The waiter appeared to clear their plates, breaking the moment. Dessert? James asked. Olivia smiled. I never say no to chocolate. As they shared a decadent chocolate cake, James asked, would you consider showing this proposal to your father? As a starting point for discussions. Olivia hesitated. He has strong feelings about you. Most people do, James said with a wry smile. Usually not positive ones. Give me some time, Olivia said. Let me think about how to approach this with him. James nodded. Take all the time you need. As they left the restaurant, the night air was cool. James offered her his jacket, and Olivia accepted, wrapping herself in its warmth and his scent. "Can I drive you home?" he asked. "I have my car," she said regretfully. "Then I'll walk you to it," he insisted. In the parking lot, standing beside her car, neither seemed ready to say goodnight. "Thank you for dinner," Olivia said. "And for the proposal. It's really thoughtful work." "Thank you for making me think differently," James replied, moving closer. Her heart pounded as he reached out to tuck a loose braid behind her ear, his fingers lingering against her cheek. Olivia leaned into his touch, unable to help herself. "This is complicated," she whispered. "Very," he agreed, his eyes on her lips. When he kissed her, it was gentle at first, almost questioning. Olivia answered by stepping closer, her hands moving to his shoulders. The kiss deepened, setting off fireworks behind her closed eyes. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing heavily. "That was," James began. "Unexpected," Olivia suggested, a small smile playing on her lips. "Inevitable," he corrected with a smile of his own. As she drove home later, Olivia's mind was spinning. She had just kissed James Sterling, her family's rival, and she wanted to do it again. What was she getting herself into? The next morning, Olivia woke to a text from James, "Breakfast." She smiled at her phone. "Don't you have a company to run?" His reply came quickly, "It can wait. There's a bakery near your apartment that makes incredible croissants." Olivia hesitated. Seeing him again so soon felt like diving headfirst into deep water. But she found herself typing, "Give me 30 minutes. The bakery was small and charming, with the scent of fresh bread filling the air. James was waiting outside with 2 coffees. His face lit up when he saw her, and Olivia felt her heart skip. "I guessed on the coffee," he said, handing her a cup. "Latte with an extra shot?" "How did you know?" she asked, surprised. He shrugged. "You mentioned it when we had coffee that first time." The fact that he had remembered such a small detail touched her. They found a table by the window, and James went to get their pastries. Olivia watched him at the counter, confident but not arrogant, smiling at the elderly woman ahead of him in line. She was seeing so many sides to him now, layers beneath the ruthless businessman everyone knew. When he returned with a selection of pastries, they fell into easy conversation again, talking about everything and nothing. Olivia found herself telling him about her dreams for her work, her fears about failing the community she wanted to help. James listened intently, offering insights without trying to solve everything for her. "What about you?" she asked eventually. "What does James Sterling want beyond another billion in the bank?" He looked thoughtful. "I never really thought beyond success. It was always about proving something, to my absent father, to the people who looked down on us when we were poor, to myself." "And now," she pressed. "Now." He hesitated. "Now I'm not sure. For the first time, I'm wondering if there could be more." The way he looked at her made it clear what more might include. Olivia felt both thrilled and terrified by the possibility. As they were leaving the bakery, James's phone rang. His expression darkened as he answered it. Olivia watched his face change, tension returning to his features. "I'll be right there," he said tersely before hanging up. "Problem?" she asked. "Someone leaked information about your father," he said, his voice tight. "Old financial records. It's all over the business news." Olivia felt the blood drain from her face. "What kind of information?" "Some questionable investments from years ago. Nothing illegal, but it could hurt your family's reputation. And your East Side bid." Olivia's phone started ringing, her brother calling. "I have to go," she said urgently. "Olivia," James caught her arm. "I need you to know, this wasn't me. I would never do this to you." She wanted to believe him. But doubt crept in, cold and insistent. "How did you know about these records? You just said they were old." James hesitated, and in that pause Olivia felt her heart sink. "You did know," she said, pulling away from him. "You had this information all along." "It's not what you think," James insisted. "My team found the information, yes, but I shut it down. I ordered them not to use it." "Then how did it get out?" Olivia demanded. "I don't know," James said, frustration evident in his voice. "But I'm going to find out. I promise you." Her phone kept ringing. "I have to deal with this," she said coldly. "Let me help," James pleaded. "I think you've done enough," Olivia replied, turning to leave. "Olivia, please," James called after her. "I didn't do this." She wanted to believe him. Part of her did. But she couldn't ignore the timing, right when she was starting to trust him, right when they were getting closer. As she hurried to her car, she couldn't help wondering if everything, the conversations, the proposal, the kiss, had all been part of some elaborate plan. Had she been played for a fool? But if that was true, why did James look so genuinely distraught? And why did her heart hurt so much at the thought of never seeing him again? Olivia arrived at her family's office to find chaos. Her father was pacing in his office while her brother Marcus was on the phone, his voice tense as he tried to calm an investor. The receptionist gave Olivia a sympathetic look as she hurried past. "Dad," she said, entering her father's office and closing the door behind her. Walter Johnson turned to his daughter, his face lined with worry and anger. "Did you see the news?" "James told me," she said, then immediately regretted her words. Her father's expression darkened. "So you were with him when this broke? Convenient timing, don't you think?" "He says he didn't do it," Olivia defended, not sure why she was taking James's side. "And you believe him?" her father asked incredulously. "Olivia, this is exactly what I warned you about. He gets close to you, learns our vulnerabilities and then strikes." Olivia wanted to argue but doubt gnawed at her. It did look bad. "What are these investments they're talking about?" she asked instead. Her father sighed heavily and sat down. 20 years ago, I made some investments that didn't work out. Nothing illegal, but I cut some corners on due diligence. The company later turned out to have connections to some unsavory people. I pulled out as soon as I found out, but it was a mistake. One I've regretted." "Why didn't you ever tell me?" Olivia asked. "It was a long time ago," her father said wearily. "And I was ashamed. I prided myself on ethical business practices and I messed up." Marcus entered the office looking exhausted. "3 investors are threatening to pull out of the East Side project. The city council wants a meeting to discuss concerns." He glanced at Olivia. "Your boyfriend really did a number on us." "He's not my boyfriend," Olivia said automatically. "And we don't know for sure he did this." "Who else would benefit?" Marcus asked sharply. Olivia had no answer for that. Her phone buzzed with a text from James. "Please let me help. This wasn't me." She put her phone away without responding. "What do we do now?" she asked her family. "We fight back," her father said firmly. "We've overcome worse. We'll be transparent about what happened, show that it was a long time ago, and remind everyone of our track record since then." Olivia nodded, pushing thoughts of James aside. Her family needed her. The next 3 days were a blur of damage control. Meetings with investors, interviews with local press, conversations with community leaders to reassure them. Olivia threw herself into the work, trying not to check her phone for messages from James. He had texted several times, each message more urgent than the last. She hadn't responded to any of them. On the 4th day, Olivia was leaving a community meeting when she spotted a familiar car parked across the street. James was leaning against it, clearly waiting for her. She considered ignoring him but found herself crossing the street instead. "You shouldn't be here," she said coldly. "I needed to see you," he replied. "You won't answer my calls." "I've been busy trying to save my family's reputation," she said pointedly. James looked genuinely pained. "I didn't do this, Olivia. I swear to you. In fact, I think I know who did." Despite herself, Olivia was curious. "Who?" "Richard Benson," James said. "The man who grabbed you outside the cafe. I did some digging. He's been trying to take control of your family's company for years. Your father has blocked him at every turn." Olivia frowned. That matched what she knew about Richard, but still. How would he get the information? "He has connections to a former employee of mine," James explained. "Someone I fired last year for ethical violations. They could have taken the information before I shut it down." It was plausible, but Olivia wasn't ready to let go of her anger so easily. Convenient explanation. "I can prove it," James insisted. "Come with me. I have documents, phone records." Olivia hesitated. Part of her wanted to believe him, wanted to trust the man she had kissed outside the restaurant. But the stakes were too high. "I can't," she said finally. "My family needs me right now." Disappointment flashed across James's face, but he nodded. "I understand. But I'm not giving up, Olivia. I'm going to clear my name and make this right." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a USB drive. "Everything I've found is on here. When you're ready to look at it, call me." Olivia took the drive reluctantly. "I should go." "Just one more thing," James said, reaching back into the car. He pulled out a folder, his partnership proposal for the East Side project. "I still believe in this. Whatever happens between us, this is a good idea for the community." Olivia took the folder wordlessly. "Take care of yourself, Olivia," James said softly. As she watched him drive away, Olivia felt torn. She wanted to believe him, but how could she trust him when her family was suffering? That night, after everyone else had gone home, Olivia sat alone in her office staring at the USB drive. Finally, she plugged it into her computer. The evidence was comprehensive. Emails between Richard Benson and James's former employee. Phone records. Money transfers. It painted a clear picture of conspiracy, one aimed at both the Johnson family and James himself. One email from Richard stood out. Once this hits the news, Johnson will be scrambling. Sterling will get the blame. 2 birds, 1 stone. Olivia sat back in her chair, feeling sick. James had been telling the truth. She had doubted him, pushed him away when he was being framed just as much as her family was. She reached for her phone, then hesitated. It was after midnight. But she needed to talk to him. She dialed his number, half expecting him not to answer. He picked up on the second ring. Olivia? His voice was alert, as if he hadn't been sleeping. I saw the evidence, she said simply. I believe you. She heard him exhale. Thank you. That means more to me than you know. I'm sorry I doubted you, she added. Don't be, he said gently. I would have doubted me too. A silence fell between them, comfortable despite everything. What do we do now? Olivia asked. About Richard and the leak? We expose him, James said firmly. Together. My father might not be ready to work with you, Olivia warned. Then we'll have to convince him, James replied. Can I see you tomorrow? Yes, Olivia said, surprising herself with how much she wanted to see him again. Come to my office at noon. I'll tell my father what we've found and we can talk to him together. I'll be there, James said, surprising herself with how much she wanted to see him again. Come to my office at noon. I'll tell my father what we've found and we can talk to him together. I'll be there, James promised. We'll figure this out. After they hung up, Olivia leaned back in her chair, feeling lighter than she had in days. The truth was coming out, and somehow, knowing James was on her side made everything seem more manageable. The next morning, Olivia arrived at the office early. She needed time to prepare her father for what was coming. Walter Johnson was already there, reviewing damage control strategies with Marcus. Dad, I need to talk to you, she said from the doorway. Alone. Something in her tone made her father nod. Marcus left, giving Olivia a curious look as he passed. What is it? Her father asked once they were alone. I know who leaked the information, Olivia said, sitting across from him. And it wasn't James Sterling. Her father's expression was skeptical. You have proof of this? Olivia pulled out the USB drive. Everything's on here. It was Richard Benson. As her father reviewed the evidence, his face grew darker with anger. That snake, he muttered. I never trusted him, but this. There's more, Olivia said carefully. James is coming here at noon. He wants to help us expose Richard. Her father looked up sharply. You've been talking to Sterling? Yes, Olivia admitted. And I believe him. He was set up too, Dad. Richard wanted us to blame each other. Walter Johnson was silent for a long moment, studying his daughter's face. You care about him, he said finally. It wasn't a question. Olivia nodded slowly. I do. He's not who we thought he was. Her father sighed heavily. I'll meet with him. But I'm not promising anything beyond that. That's all I'm asking, Olivia said, relieved. At noon precisely, James arrived. Olivia met him in the lobby, suddenly nervous. He looked tired but determined, dressed impeccably in a dark suit. How did it go with your father? He asked quietly as they walked toward the conference room. He looked at the evidence. He's willing to talk, Olivia replied. That's something. James nodded, his hand briefly touching the small of her back. The simple gesture of support meant more to Olivia than he could know. Walter Johnson stood as they entered the conference room, his face unreadable. Mr. Sterling, he said formally, extending his hand. Mr. Johnson, James replied, shaking it firmly. Thank you for seeing me. My daughter believes you're innocent in this matter, Walter said, getting straight to the point. She's shown me your evidence against Benson. It's compelling. Richard Benson has been trying to undermine both our companies, James said, taking a seat. He saw our rivalry as an opportunity. Why should I trust you now? Walter asked bluntly. You've made no secret of wanting to crush my business. James met the older man's gaze steadily. Business is business. But this crossed a line. And recently I've been rethinking my approach to many things. His eyes flickered to Olivia briefly, and her father didn't miss it. Because of my daughter? Walter stated. Partly, James admitted honestly. She's helped me see things differently. But also because what Benson did hurts the communities we both serve. The East Side Project is too important to be derailed by personal grudges, his or ours. Walter Johnson leaned back in his chair, studying James thoughtfully. What are you proposing? A joint statement exposing Benson, James said, followed by a partnership on the East Side development. He slid a copy of his proposal across the table. Olivia has seen this already. Walter raised an eyebrow at his daughter before taking the proposal. He read it carefully, his expression giving nothing away. This is unexpected, he said finally. I think it's brilliant, Olivia interjected. Dad, look at what we could do together. James has resources we don't, and we have community trust he doesn't. It's perfect. And what happens when this partnership ends? Walter asked James directly. You go back to being our enemy? James shook his head. I don't want to be your enemy, Mr. Johnson. I never did. I just wanted to win. But I'm starting to learn there are different ways of winning. The sincerity in his voice seemed to reach Walter. The older man's expression softened slightly. I'll consider it, he said, after we deal with Benson. That's fair, James agreed. They spent the next hour planning their strategy. They would call a joint press conference for the following day, present their evidence and clear both companies' names. Richard Benson wouldn't know what hit him. As they finished, Walter stood. I need to brief our legal team. Olivia, will you show Mr. Sterling out? He gave his daughter a knowing look before leaving them alone. That went better than expected, James said once they were alone. He's coming around, Olivia agreed. Thank you for doing this. James moved closer to her. I'm not just doing it for your father or even for my company. I'm doing it for you. Olivia looked up at him, her heart pounding. James? I've missed you, he said softly. These past few days not talking to you, it was harder than I expected. Without thinking, Olivia reached for his hand. I missed you too. His fingers intertwined with hers, warm and reassuring. For a moment they stood there, close but not touching otherwise, both aware of where they were. After the press conference tomorrow, James said. Have dinner with me again? Olivia smiled. Yes. As she walked him to the elevator, James asked, How does your father really feel about all this? He's cautious, Olivia admitted. But he respects what you're doing. That's a start. The elevator doors opened. Before stepping in, James lifted her hand to his lips and kissed it gently. Until tomorrow. The gesture was old-fashioned but sent shivers down Olivia's spine nevertheless. She watched the doors close, a smile lingering on her lips. Her phone chimed with a message from Marcus. Dad told me what's happening. Are you sure about Sterling? Olivia typed back, Yes, I am. And she was. Despite everything, she trusted James. The realization should have frightened her, but instead it felt right. The press conference the next day was a storm of camera flashes and shouted questions. James and Walter stood side by side at the podium, presenting a united front that had the reporters buzzing with surprise. James spoke first, his voice clear and confident. We've called you here today to address the recent allegations against Johnson Development and to reveal the truth behind them. He outlined the evidence against Richard Benson without mentioning that his team had originally discovered the information about Walter Johnson. Instead, he focused on Benson's attempt to manipulate both companies. When it was Walter's turn, he spoke candidly about his past mistake and how he had spent the last 20 years building an ethical company. One error in judgment doesn't define a lifetime of work, he said firmly. Olivia, watching from the side, felt proud of both men. They were handling a difficult situation with dignity and honesty. The bombshell came when Richard Benson himself appeared at the back of the room, his face twisted with anger. This is slander, he shouted. You have no proof. James looked at him calmly. We have emails, Mr. Benson. Phone records. Bank transfers. Would you like us to display them on the screen behind us? Richard's face paled. He looked around wildly, then stormed out. The press conference continued with questions, most of which James and Walter handled skillfully. By the end, the narrative had clearly shifted. The Johnsons were no longer the story, Richard Benson was. As they were leaving, Walter pulled James aside. You handled that well, he said grudgingly. And I've looked at your proposal. Let's discuss it further next week. James nodded, hiding his surprise at the quick turnaround. I look forward to it. Later that evening, as promised, James picked Olivia up for dinner. But instead of another restaurant, he drove them to his penthouse. I hope you don't mind, he said as the elevator ascended. "I thought we could use some privacy after today." The penthouse was stunning, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, sleek modern furniture, but warmer than Olivia had expected. Fresh flowers sat on the dining table, which was already set for two. "You cook?" she asked, surprised. James laughed. "Not if I can help it. But I have a chef who prepared everything. All I need to do is heat it up." As they ate dinner and watched the sun set over the city, conversation flowed easily between them. Olivia told James about her childhood, about growing up watching her father build his business while her mother cared for sick children. "They taught me about responsibility," she said. "About using whatever privileges you have to help others." James nodded thoughtfully. "My mother taught me about survival. About fighting for what you want because no one will give it to you." He looked reflective. "I think I took those lessons too far sometimes." "It's never too late to learn new lessons," Olivia said softly. Their eyes met across the table and James reached for her hand. "You've taught me more in a few weeks than I've learned in years of business." After dinner, they moved to the sofa with glasses of wine. Sitting close together, looking out at the glittering city lights, Olivia felt a sense of peace she hadn't expected. "What happens now?" she asked. "With us." James turned to face her. "What do you want to happen?" The question was simple but loaded with meaning. Olivia took a breath. "I want to see where this goes. But my family, your reputation." "We take it one day at a time," James suggested. "Your father and I are working together now. That's a start." "People will talk," Olivia warned. "Let them," James said with a shrug. "I've spent too long caring about what others think of me." He set down his wine glass and took hers, placing it on the coffee table. Then he cupped her face gently in his hands. "I'm falling for you, Olivia Johnson," he said quietly. "And it terrifies me because I've never felt this way before. But I'm not running from it." Olivia's heart felt full to bursting. "I'm falling for you too," she admitted. Despite every reason not to. When he kissed her this time, it was with certainty, with promise. Olivia surrendered to the feeling, knowing that whatever came next they would face it together. 2 weeks later, Olivia sat in a community center on the east side, watching James interact with residents. They were presenting the joint development plan to the people it would most affect, and James had insisted on being there personally. "We're not just building houses," he was saying to an elderly woman who had lived in the neighborhood for 50 years. "We're preserving a community. Your stories, your connections, they matter to this project." Olivia felt a surge of pride watching him. Since their alliance had become public, James had thrown himself into understanding the human side of development. He asked questions, listened to concerns, and adjusted plans based on what he heard. Her father stood nearby, still cautious around James but increasingly impressed by his commitment. The partnership agreement had been signed the previous week, making headlines across the city. "Rivals unite for community development," the business section had proclaimed. After the meeting, as they walked back to their cars, Walter pulled Olivia aside. "I was wrong about him," he admitted quietly, nodding toward James who was speaking with the community center director. Olivia smiled. "He's different than we thought." "Or he's changing," her father suggested. "People can, with the right motivation." He gave her a knowing look. Olivia blushed. "Dad." Walter held up his hands. "I'm not interfering. Just observing that he looks at you the way I've looked at your mother for 40 years. The comparison made Olivia's heart skip. "It's still new," she said cautiously. "Some things you just know," her father replied with a shrug. "Be careful with your heart, but don't be afraid to follow it." James joined them, looking between father and daughter curiously. "Everything okay?" "Just fine," Walter said, extending his hand. "Good work today, James." As her father walked away, James raised an eyebrow at Olivia. "That seems significant." "He's warming up to you," she confirmed with a smile. "And to us?" James asked softly. Olivia nodded. "He said you look at me the way he looks at my mom." Something vulnerable flashed in James's eyes. "Smart man, your father." That evening they had dinner with Olivia's entire family, her parents, her brother Marcus, and his wife and children. James had been nervous, but he handled himself well, answering Marcus's pointed questions about business with honesty and making Olivia's mother laugh with unexpected stories from his college days. "You survived," Olivia teased as they left her parents' house later. "Barely," James replied with a dramatic sigh. "Your nephew asked me if I was as rich as Iron Man." Olivia laughed. "What did you tell him?" "That Iron Man was cooler because he could fly," James said. "But I was working on it." As they drove back to the city, Olivia found herself watching James's profile in the dim light, marveling at how much had changed in such a short time. "What?" he asked, catching her gaze. "Just thinking about how differently things turned out than I expected," she admitted. "When we first met, I thought you were cold and ruthless." "I was," James said honestly. "Or at least I thought I needed to be." "What changed?" Olivia asked. James was quiet for a moment, thinking. "You showed me another way to succeed. One that doesn't require leaving people behind or seeing relationships as weaknesses." His hand found hers across the console, their fingers intertwining naturally now. "You make me want to be better," he added softly. The words touched something deep in Olivia's heart. "You're already better than you think," she told him. The next few months passed in a blur of work and deepening feelings. The East Side project broke ground, with James and Olivia both grabbing shovels at the ceremony. Richard Benson resigned from his family's company after the scandal, disappearing to Europe according to rumors. James and Olivia's relationship remained primarily private, though they no longer hid it. They were photographed together at charity events and business functions, leading to speculation in the local press. "Sterling softens, has Johnson's daughter tamed the business tiger?" One headline read, making Olivia roll her eyes and James laugh. "If they only knew you're the tough one in this relationship," he teased. It was true in many ways. Olivia challenged James, pushed him to think beyond profit margins, to consider the human cost of business decisions. And to her surprise, he welcomed it, valued her perspective even when they disagreed. 6 months after their first dance at the gala, James invited Olivia to dinner at the same restaurant where he had first shown her the partnership proposal. "Feeling nostalgic?" she asked as they were seated at the same quiet corner table. "Something like that," James replied, seeming uncharacteristically nervous. Throughout dinner, he was distracted, checking his phone frequently and glancing at his watch. "Is everything okay?" Olivia finally asked. "If you need to handle some business emergency, we can do this another night." James shook his head, putting his phone away. "No emergency. Sorry for being distracted." He took a deep breath. "Actually, there's something I want to show you. A new project." He pulled out his tablet and pulled up plans for a building, not a luxury condo or office tower but something different. "A community center?" Olivia asked, looking at the renderings. "Not just any community center," James explained, his voice gaining enthusiasm. "It's a combined education and job training facility for the South Side, where I grew up." Olivia studied the plans with growing excitement. "James, this is amazing. When did you start working on this?" "A few months ago," he admitted. "I was inspired by what we're doing on the East Side. But I wanted this to be personal. Something my mother would have been proud of." "She would be," Olivia said softly, reaching across the table to squeeze his hand. James turned his hand to hold hers. "There's more. Look at the name." Olivia scrolled to the front page of the proposal and felt tears spring to her eyes. "The Maria Sterling Johnson Community Center?" "If that's okay," James said, suddenly uncertain. "I wanted your family's involvement. Your expertise in community development. And," he paused, "I wanted something that represented us. Together." The significance of the gesture wasn't lost on Olivia. This wasn't just a building, it was a statement about their future. "It's more than okay," she assured him. "It's perfect." Relief and joy spread across James's face. "There's one more thing," he said, reaching into his pocket. He pulled out a small box and Olivia's breath caught. "I had this whole speech planned," James said with a nervous laugh. "About how you've changed my life, how you've shown me what really matters. But now that I'm here, the only thing I can think to say is that I love you, Olivia Johnson. More than I ever thought possible." He opened the box to reveal a stunning yet tasteful diamond ring. "I don't want to wait any longer to start our life together," he continued. "Will you marry me?" Tears blurred Olivia's vision as happiness overwhelmed her. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I will." James slipped the ring onto her finger with slightly shaking hands, then leaned across the table to kiss her. Around them, other diners applauded, having realized what was happening, but Olivia barely noticed. "I love you," she told him when they broke apart. "Even when you were being cruel and ruthless, I think part of me was already falling for you." James laughed. "And I fell for you when you stood up to me at that gala. No one had done that in years." As they left the restaurant, James's phone pinged with a message. He checked it and smiled. "Your family is waiting at my place to celebrate. If that's okay?" Olivia was touched. "You told them?" "Asked your father's blessing," James confirmed. "Old-fashioned, I know, but it felt right." And he gave it? Olivia asked, surprised. James grinned. Eventually. After making me sweat for about 10 minutes. When they arrived at James's penthouse, they found not only Olivia's family but also key members of both their companies. Champagne was flowing and cheers erupted when they entered. Walter Johnson was the first to approach, embracing his daughter and then, to everyone's surprise, pulling James into a hug as well. "Welcome to the family," he said gruffly. "Just remember what I told you." James nodded solemnly. "I will." "What did he tell you?" Olivia asked later when they had a moment alone on the balcony. James smiled, pulling her close. "That loving a Johnson woman is the greatest privilege a man can have, but it comes with the responsibility to be worthy of that love every day." Olivia leaned into his embrace, looking out at the city they were helping to build together. "I think you've got that covered." "I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure of it," James promised, sealing the words with a kiss. 3 months into their engagement, Olivia and James faced their first major challenge as a couple. The economy took an unexpected downturn, and suddenly the East Side project was in jeopardy. Cost overruns and nervous investors threatened to derail everything they had worked for. "We need to scale back," James's financial advisor insisted during an emergency meeting. "Cut the community spaces, reduce the affordable housing quotient, focus on the commercial areas that will generate immediate revenue." Olivia tensed, waiting for James's response. This was exactly the approach he would have taken a year ago. Maximize profit, minimize risk. Part of her feared that when tested, he would revert to type. James was quiet for a moment, studying the numbers on the screen. Then he looked up at his team. "No. We're not compromising on the community aspects of this project." Relief flooded through Olivia as he continued. "This project isn't just about making money," James said firmly. "It's about keeping promises. Find another way to cut costs. Reduce my compensation if necessary." His team looked shocked at the suggestion. James Sterling giving up his own profits? It was unprecedented. After the meeting, when they were alone in his office, Olivia hugged him tightly. "Thank you," she whispered. James pulled back to look at her. "For what?" "For standing by our vision," she said. "I know how hard that was for you." "Actually, it wasn't," James admitted, looking surprised at his own realization. "A year ago I would have seen only the numbers. Now I see the people behind them." He brushed a strand of hair from her face tenderly. "You've changed me, Olivia. For the better." That night, they worked late at James's penthouse, going over the project plans, looking for ways to save money without sacrificing quality or community benefits. It was after midnight when they finally found a solution that worked, extending the timeline slightly and phasing the construction differently. "We did it," Olivia said, leaning back on the sofa, exhausted but relieved. James sat beside her, equally tired. "We make a good team." "The best," she agreed, leaning against him. James wrapped his arm around her shoulders. "Move in with me," he said suddenly. Olivia looked up at him, surprised. "What?" "Move in with me," he repeated. "Why wait? We're together most nights anyway. And I want to fall asleep beside you every night and wake up with you every morning." The sincerity in his voice touched her heart. "Are you sure? I know you value your space." "I value you more," James said simply. "This place has never felt like a home until you started spending time here." Olivia smiled, warmth spreading through her chest. "Then yes, I'll move in with you." The next week brought another challenge. A prominent business magazine published a feature article about their relationship, dubbing them Beauty and the Business Beast. The article speculated about whether James was truly changed or simply putting on an act to win over the Johnson family's connections. "It's ridiculous," Olivia fumed, tossing the magazine aside. "They don't know you at all." James seemed unbothered as he poured their morning coffee. "I don't care what they think," he said calmly. "A year ago I would have been furious, would have demanded retractions or threatened lawsuits. Now," he shrugged, "it just doesn't matter." Olivia studied him as he handed her a mug. "When did you become so zen?" James laughed. "Hardly zen. I just figured out what's actually important." He sat beside her at the breakfast bar. "My reputation used to be everything to me because I thought it was all I had. Now I have you, our work together, a future that means something." Olivia leaned over to kiss him. "I love you, you know." "I do know," he replied with a smile. "And it still amazes me every day." The magazine article had one unexpected benefit. It caught the attention of a national foundation focused on innovative community development. 2 weeks later, James and Olivia found themselves presenting the East Side project to the foundation's board. What makes this project different, Olivia explained to the board, is that it combines the best of both worlds, strong business fundamentals with genuine community benefit. And what happens when those two goals conflict? One board member asked skeptically. When the bottom line demands one thing and the community needs another? James stepped forward. That's where partnership becomes crucial. Alone, I might have prioritized profit. Alone, the Johnsons might have struggled with financial sustainability. Together, we challenge each other to find solutions that work for everyone. The board was impressed. By the end of the meeting, they had committed a significant grant to support the project's community spaces. As they left the foundation offices, James took Olivia's hand. "We should get married at the community center," he said suddenly. Olivia looked at him in surprise. "The one we're building on the south side? It won't be finished for at least a year." "I can wait if you can," James replied. "I want to start our marriage in a place that represents everything we believe in together." The thoughtfulness of the suggestion touched Olivia deeply. "I love that idea," she said. "My father will think we're crazy to wait that long though." James grinned. "We'll win him over. We usually do." And they did. Though Walter Johnson grumbled about the delay, he understood the symbolism of their choice. The months passed in a blur of work and planning, both for the wedding and for their projects. James and Olivia moved seamlessly between boardrooms and construction sites, both equally comfortable in either setting now. One evening, as they walked through the partially constructed community center on the south side, James grew quiet, staring at the framework of what would become the main hall. "What are you thinking about?" Olivia asked, slipping her arm through his. "My mother," he admitted. "She used to clean office buildings at night to make extra money. I'd go with her sometimes, do my homework in empty conference rooms while she worked. She always told me I'd have my own building someday." Olivia squeezed his arm. "She was right. Not the way she meant though," James said thoughtfully. "She meant I'd escape poverty, be successful. But this." He gestured around them, "building something that helps others escape too, that would have made her truly proud." Olivia leaned her head against his shoulder. "She is proud, James. Wherever she is." As they stood there in the skeletal building that represented their shared vision, Olivia felt a profound sense of rightness. They had overcome so much, family opposition, business rivalries, public skepticism, to reach this point. The building around them was unfinished, but it was solid, its foundation strong. Like their relationship, Olivia thought. Built carefully, tested by storms, but enduring. As their wedding date approached, Olivia noticed James becoming increasingly reflective. He spent more time looking through old photographs of his mother and asking questions about Olivia's family traditions. "I want to understand where you come from," he explained when she asked about his sudden interest in her childhood photos. "Family means something different to you than it did to me." It was true. For Olivia, family had always been a source of strength and support. For James, it represented absence and loss, his father's abandonment, his mother's early death. "You're part of our family now," Olivia reminded him, curled beside him on their sofa one evening. "And we're starting our own." James looked at her with sudden intensity. "Do you want children?" he asked. It wasn't something they had discussed in detail before. Olivia nodded slowly. "I do. Someday. Do you?" For a moment, uncertainty flickered across James's face. "I never thought I would," he admitted. "I didn't think I'd be good at it. My own father was." He trailed off. "You're nothing like him," Olivia said firmly. "You wouldn't leave." "No," James agreed. "I wouldn't. But parenthood is more than just staying." He took her hand. "When I see you with your nephew, how natural you are with him. I don't know if I have that in me." Olivia squeezed his hand. "You don't have to decide tonight. We have time." But James shook his head. "That's just it. I have decided. Being with you, seeing how you believe in me, it makes me want to try. To be a father someday. A good one." The admission moved Olivia deeply. She knew how much it had cost him to say it, to acknowledge both his fear and his desire. "You will be," she assured him, "when the time is right." 2 weeks before the wedding, an unexpected visitor arrived at their penthouse. Olivia answered the door to find an older man standing there, looking uncomfortable in an ill-fitting suit. "I'm looking for James Sterling," he said gruffly. Something about his eyes, the same shape and color as James's, made Olivia's heart skip. "You're his father?" she said, not a question. The man nodded once. "Robert Sterling. Is he here?" "No," Olivia said, recovering from her shock. He's at a meeting. I'm Olivia Johnson, his fiancée. Recognition dawned on Robert's face. The wedding? That's why I'm here. I saw it in the papers. Olivia hesitated, unsure what to do. James never spoke of his father except with bitterness. What would he want her to do? Would you like to come in? She finally asked. He should be home in about an hour. Robert looked surprised at the invitation but nodded and stepped inside. He stood awkwardly in the entryway, looking around at the luxury of the penthouse with something like awe. He did well for himself, he commented. No thanks to you, Olivia couldn't help saying, then regretted her sharpness. I'm sorry. That was uncalled for. I don't know your story. Robert shook his head. No, you're right. I left them when he was just a boy. His mother too. I was no good back then, drinking, gambling, in and out of jobs. Olivia led him to the living room, where he perched uncomfortably on the edge of an armchair. Why are you here now? She asked directly. Robert looked down at his hands. I got sober 15 years ago. Started a small contracting business out west. Tried to find them a few times, but Maria had moved, changed her number. Then I saw James in a business magazine a few years back. Couldn't believe it was my boy. I've been following his career since then from a distance. Why not reach out sooner? Olivia pressed. Shame, Robert admitted simply. What do you say to a son you abandoned? But when I saw the wedding announcement I thought, maybe it's time. Maybe he's happy enough now to hear me out. Olivia wasn't sure what to think. The man seemed sincere but James's wounds ran deep. I can't promise how he'll react, she warned. He might not want to see you. Robert nodded. I know. I'll accept whatever he decides. I just want a chance to apologize at least. They sat in uncomfortable silence for a while, Olivia offering coffee which Robert accepted gratefully. She asked him cautious questions about his life now, learning that he had remarried, had 2 teenage stepdaughters, ran a modestly successful business. When they heard the front door open, Robert tensed visibly. Olivia rose, moving to meet James in the entryway. James, she said quietly, touching his arm. There's someone here to see you. James looked past her to the living room and his expression froze. What is he doing here? He asked, his voice dangerously calm. He saw the wedding announcement, Olivia explained. He wanted to talk to you. James's jaw tightened. I have nothing to say to him. Olivia touched his face gently. Then just listen. 5 minutes. If you want him to leave after that, I'll make sure he goes. James looked down at her, conflict clear in his eyes. Finally, he nodded once and strode into the living room. Robert stood as James entered, his hands fidgeting nervously at his sides. James? He said, his voice rough with emotion. You look just like your mother. Something flickered in James's eyes, pain or anger or both. Don't talk about her, he said coldly. You lost that right when you walked out. Robert nodded, accepting the rebuke. You're right. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. Not that it changes anything. But I'm clean now 15 years. I have a decent life. And when I saw you were getting married, I thought, maybe you'd want to know that at least one of your parents is alive to see it. James stood rigid, his face expressionless. Is that all? Robert reached into his pocket and pulled out an envelope. I brought something. For you and your bride. He held it out. When James made no move to take it, Robert placed it on the coffee table. It's not money. I wouldn't insult you like that. It's pictures. Of your mother when she was young. From before I ruined everything. I thought you might want them. Some of the hardness left James's face. He glanced at the envelope, then back at his father. Why now? He asked, the question holding decades of hurt. Because I've been a coward, Robert admitted. Too ashamed to face what I did. But I'm getting older, and I didn't want to die knowing I never even tried to tell you how sorry I am. The simple honesty of the statement seemed to reach James. His shoulders relaxed slightly, though his expression remained guarded. 5 minutes is up, he said, but without the earlier coldness. Robert nodded, reaching for his coat. I understand. Thank you for seeing me. He pulled out a business card and placed it beside the envelope. If you ever want to reach me, for any reason. He moved toward the door, then paused beside James. Your mother would be proud of the man you've become, he said, quietly. And of the woman you've chosen. He glanced at Olivia with a small smile. She has her spirit. Then he was gone, leaving James staring at the envelope on the coffee table. Olivia approached cautiously. Are you okay? For a long moment, James didn't answer. Then he picked up the envelope and opened it, pulling out a small stack of faded photographs. Olivia watched as he sifted through them. A young woman with James's eyes laughing by a lake, the same woman in a simple white dress beside a much younger Robert, the two of them holding a baby. "I've never seen these," James said, his voice thick. "She looks so happy." Olivia wrapped her arms around him from behind, resting her cheek against his back. She was happy then. Those moments were real, even if they didn't last. James leaned into her embrace, still looking at the photos. "My whole life I've been so angry at him. It defined me in ways I didn't even realize." "You had every right to be angry," Olivia assured him. "Yes," James agreed. "But I don't want that anger to define the rest of my life. Or our life together." He turned in her arms to face her. "Do you think I should talk to him again?" Olivia touched his face gently. "I think that's entirely up to you. Whatever you decide, I'll support you." James nodded, his expression thoughtful. "Not now. Maybe after the wedding. But I won't throw his card away." It was a small step but significant. That night, as they lay in bed, James talked more about his mother than he ever had before. The way she sang while cooking, how she'd helped him with his math homework no matter how tired she was, her dream of seeing him graduate college. "She would have loved you," he told Olivia sleepily as they drifted off. "I wish I could have met her," Olivia replied, holding him close. The incident with Robert seemed to release something in James. Over the next weeks, as the wedding approached, he became more open, not just with Olivia but with her family as well. He shared stories from his childhood, asked Walter about raising children, spent time learning Olivia's mother's recipes. The day before their wedding, they visited the completed community center on the south side. Tomorrow it would be filled with guests, decorated with flowers and lights. But today it was just theirs, the culmination of their work together. "Hard to believe it's finished," Olivia said, her voice echoing in the main hall. "Just the building," James replied, taking her hand. "The real work is just beginning." They walked through the spaces they had designed together. Classrooms for job training, a state-of-the-art computer lab, daycare facilities, community meeting rooms. Names of donors lined the walls, but in the center was a simple plaque, founded by James Sterling and Olivia Johnson Sterling, in honor of Maria Sterling and the Johnson family legacy of community service. "Johnson Sterling," Olivia read aloud, smiling. "I like the sound of that." James pulled her close. "So do I." Their wedding day dawned clear and bright. Olivia prepared at her parents' home, surrounded by her mother, female cousins and close friends. Her dress was elegant but simple, ivory silk that skimmed her curves and caught the light as she moved. "You look beautiful, sweetheart," her mother said, adjusting the veil. "How are you feeling?" "Ready," Olivia replied with certainty. "More ready than I've ever been for anything." Across town, James was getting ready at their penthouse with Marcus, who had surprisingly become a friend over the months of working together. "Nervous?" Marcus asked as James struggled with his bow tie. "Not about marrying Olivia," James replied honestly. "Just about living up to what she deserves." Marcus clapped him on the shoulder. "The fact that you worry about that tells me you probably will." When James arrived at the community center, he was struck by its transformation. Flowers and greenery softened the modern lines of the architecture. Chairs were arranged in a semicircle in the main hall, filled with a mix of people. Business associates, community members, family friends. In the front row sat Walter and Patricia Johnson. And beside them, to James's surprise, was Robert Sterling, looking uncomfortable but present. James had sent the invitation on impulse last week, never really expecting his father to come. Their eyes met across the room and Robert gave a small, uncertain nod. James returned it, a simple acknowledgement that felt like the beginning of something. The music changed and everyone stood. James turned to see Olivia entering on her father's arm and his breath caught. She was radiant, her smile lighting up her entire face as their eyes met. Walter placed Olivia's hand in James's with a meaningful look before stepping back. And then it was just the two of them, standing before their gathered loved ones, ready to begin their life together. Their vows were personal and heartfelt. James spoke of how Olivia had changed him, shown him a different way to live and work. Olivia spoke of their unlikely beginning and her belief in the man James truly was beneath the tough exterior. "I take you not just as my husband," she said, her voice clear and strong, "but as my partner in all things, in love, in work, in building a better world." "And I take you not just as my wife," James replied, "but as my conscience, my inspiration, and my home." When they were pronounced husband and wife, the applause was thunderous. James kissed Olivia with a tenderness that belied his former reputation, and she kissed him back with a passion that promised a lifetime of happiness. The reception was a blend of elegance and community, just like their relationship. Children from the neighborhood played in a special area set up for them. Executives mingled with community organizers. Food stations offered everything from gourmet canapés to soul food favorites. During the reception, James spotted his father standing alone by one of the windows. After a moment's hesitation, he approached, bringing Olivia with him. "Thank you for coming," he said formally. Robert nodded. "Thank you for inviting me. I didn't expect it." An awkward silence fell between them. Finally, James asked, "How long are you in town?" "Through the weekend," Robert replied. "My flight's Sunday evening." James exchanged a glance with Olivia, who nodded encouragingly. "Maybe we could have coffee on Sunday morning," he suggested. "Before you leave." Relief and gratitude flooded Robert's face. "I'd like that." It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But it was a beginning. Later, as they shared their first dance, James held Olivia close. "Thank you," he murmured against her hair. "For what?" she asked, looking up at him. "For seeing something in me worth loving," he replied. "Even when I didn't see it myself." Olivia smiled. "I always saw you, James. The real you. Even when you were trying to hide him." As they moved across the floor, James caught sight of Walter Johnson watching them, approval clear in his eyes. How far they had come from their first confrontational meeting. "Your father has finally accepted me," James observed. Olivia laughed. "He more than accepts you. I think he actually likes you now. Never thought I'd see the day." The evening ended with James and Olivia leaving amid a shower of flower petals, climbing into a waiting car that would take them to the airport for their honeymoon in Bali. As they drove away, Olivia leaned against her new husband. "Happy?" she asked. James looked down at her, at the ring now glinting on her finger, at the promise of their future together. "More than I ever thought possible," he replied honestly. Their honeymoon was 2 weeks of pure bliss. Mornings spent exploring local markets and temples, afternoons on pristine beaches, evenings enjoying candlelit dinners. Away from the pressures of work and family, they discovered new sides to each other. James's unexpected talent for haggling with local vendors, Olivia's adventurous approach to trying new foods. On their last night in Bali, they sat on the balcony of their villa, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. "I had coffee with my father," James said suddenly. Olivia turned to him in surprise. "What? When?" "This morning while you were getting your massage," James explained. "I called him." "How did it go?" Olivia asked carefully. James was quiet for a moment. "Better than I expected. We talked about my mother, about his life now. He told me about his stepdaughters. Asked if we planned to have children." "And what did you tell him?" Olivia asked, curious. A small smile played at James's lips. "I told him that his grandchildren would know him, but on my terms. That we'd take it slowly." Olivia's heart swelled with pride at how far James had come. "That's fair," she said softly. "He's not a bad man," James admitted. "Just a weak one who made terrible choices. I don't think I can ever fully forgive what he did to my mother, but maybe we can build something new. Something small but real." Olivia leaned over to kiss him gently. "I'm proud of you." When they returned from their honeymoon, they dove back into work with renewed energy. The East Side project was thriving, with the first residents already moving into completed units. The community center on the South Side was running programs at full capacity. Together, they began planning their next venture, a scholarship program for students from both neighborhoods, funded by a portion of profits from Sterling Johnson Developments, the new company they had formed by merging parts of their family businesses. 6 months after their wedding, Olivia sat in their penthouse, looking at a small plastic stick with 2 pink lines. Her heart raced with a mixture of joy and nervousness. They had talked about children but hadn't been actively trying yet. When James came home that evening, he immediately noticed something was different. "What is it?" he asked, setting down his briefcase. Instead of answering, Olivia handed him the pregnancy test. James stared at it for a long moment, his expression unreadable. "We're having a baby?" he finally asked, his voice hushed. Olivia nodded, watching his face carefully. "Are you okay with this? I know we said we'd wait a year or two." A slow smile spread across James's face, growing until it lit his entire countenance. "Okay with it? Olivia, this is..." He shook his head, seemingly at a loss for words. Then he was pulling her into his arms, holding her as if she were the most precious thing in the world. "We're having a baby," he repeated, wonder in his voice. That night, they lay in bed talking about their child's future. The values they wanted to instill, the opportunities they wanted to provide, the balance they hope to strike between privilege and responsibility. He or she will have advantages I never had, James mused, his hand resting on Olivia's still flat stomach. But I want them to understand what really matters isn't money or status. What really matters? Olivia prompted. James looked at her, his eyes full of love. Family. Community. Using what you have to help others. All the things you taught me. Olivia covered his hand with her own. We'll teach them together. 7 years later, James stood at the window of his office, much as he had that day when he first learned the Johnsons had won the bid for the East Side land. But now, instead of anger and resentment, he felt pride as he looked out at a city transformed by their work together. The door opened and 6-year-old Maria bounded in, her braids bouncing, followed by her more sedate 4-year-old brother Walter. "Daddy!" Maria exclaimed. "Mom says it's time to go. The ceremony starts in an hour." James smiled, lifting his daughter into his arms. "Is that so? And where's your mother?" "Right here," Olivia said from the doorway, one hand resting on her pregnant belly. At 7 months along with their third child, she glowed with health and happiness. James felt his heart swell at the sight of his family. Every day they amazed him anew. Maria with her quick mind and determined spirit, so like her namesake grandmother. Walter with his thoughtful nature and kind heart, already showing signs of the diplomat his grandfather was. And Olivia, still challenging him, still inspiring him, still loving him with a depth that humbled him daily.